So hello and welcome everyone to our Spring 2022 Capstone presentations for our Web and Software Developer and Data and Analytics Specialist programs. I'm Nikki Kowalchuk. I'm one of the instructors in the degree. I teach in the Data and Analytics Specialist degree. And Matt is somewhere.
I'm here.
You want to introduce yourself, Matt?
Yeah, so Matt Green, instructor in Web and Software Development.
So all of the projects that our students have worked on this semester are service learning projects for WCTC. This provides our students with a real world project to complete, but it's still an educational environment. The people that they're doing the projects for understand that they are students, they're still learning, and it's been a really good thing for this class for our students to be able to work with real sponsors on their projects and for WCTC to get a lot of benefit out of this as well. The format of this presentation will be that we'll have a maximum of 15 minutes for each group to present, and then there'll be about 5 minutes for each question, for questions for each project. And then we've got our tentative schedule here. This is at least the order. We're going to start with a data project, do 2 software projects, and then have an intermission about in the middle, and then go to 2 projects for our health system or our health department, and then round out with the picnic team at the end. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let our transfer student analysis project present.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, so today we're going to be presenting our project on the transfer student data analysis. This is the first of 2 projects our group is going to be presenting to you all today. The transfer student analysis project has student drop from the course, so our groups were combined to work both on this project as well as the health IT claims database project together. My name is Megan Dunn, and I'm a student in the Data Analysis Specialist program here at WCTC, and I primarily enjoy working on data reporting and analysis.
I'm Chris Boniface. I'm a student in the Database Specialist program here at WCTC, and I'm currently working in an internship at MC Services in Pewaukee.
My name is Katie Brapberg. I'm a database specialist student at WCTC. I have an interest in data warehousing and actively seeking internship. I will not be presenting on this project. I will be presenting on the Health IT Claims Database project.
So what is this project? For this project, we took data collected from the National Student Clearinghouse and standardized it to then analyze and create reporting visuals for our product owner on any interesting trends or questions. The National Student Clearinghouse is a nonprofit organization that gathers data on student degree verification and enrollment verification. We received enrollment, degree, and graduation data from 2011 to the start of 2022 for any students enrolled at WCTC within that timeframe. Standardizing and analyzing this data is very important for WCTC because it can show important information on the programs offered at our school, as well as transfer information and agreements that we have with other institutions. It allows the student or the school to analyze what changes have been made during specific years and overall that could potentially influence student transfers. This report provides value as there was a study conducted previously on the NSC data from 2001 to 2011. By comparing information between the 2, we were able to identify recurring trends as well as significant changes. Patterns in student transfers related to specific programs, transfer institutions, graduate status, etc. These are all important factors that suggest recurring themes with student transfers and a rise in student transfers overall. We were tasked with answering specific questions for our product owner and also came up with some extra interesting ones, which we will demo for you now.
All right. Has the rate at which students transfer changed over time? This graph displays the rate of transfers and how it has changed from 2012 to 2021. The current year was excluded due to it not yet being complete. And 2011's data may be influenced by transfers happening earlier in the year than the requested search date for this data, as it displays a 0.28% transfer rate. So it was excluded as well. But as we can see, the rate has increased from 1.82% to 4.15% in roughly 9 to 10 years. In the other visual, when do WCTC students transfer? According to the analysis of this data, Roughly 81% of transfers occurred within 2 years from when the student was last enrolled at WCTC. From the previous study, which indicated 80% of transfers occurred within 2 years of a student's last enrollment, it has increased by 1%. And this is an alternative view of the change in transfer rate over time, displaying the difference in transfer rate between students who are graduates from WCTC and those who have not yet graduated. As we can see from the graph, the rate of transfers for graduates has increased by 0.87%, whereas the rate of transfers for non-graduates spiked in 2018 from 1.38% to 2.45%, with a 1.46% increase overall. Where do WCTC students transfer to, and how many students transfer? These visuals display the colleges that WCTC students, both graduates and non-graduates, are most likely to transfer to. These results can be filtered based on 2-year or 4-year institutions. And out of 44,000 unduplicated students from WCTC between 2011 and 2022, 12,000 chose to transfer to another institution after attending WCTC. The Milwaukee Area Technical College saw the highest amount of WCTC transfers of all 2-year institutions at 1,833 students. UW-Milwaukee saw the highest amount of transfers for 4-year institutions at 1,163 student transfers. Of the 12,000 students who transferred to other institutions, 4,000 transferred to a 2-year school and 8,000 transferred to a 4-year school. And here's another time frame very similar to our first graph, which showed when WCTC students transfer compared to when they were last enrolled. This graph is the transfer time frame for only students who have graduated from WCTC, and it indicates that 82% of graduates transfer within 2 years of their graduation from WCTC.
Are there specific WCTC programs that students are more likely to transfer from? Matching the previous study, which indicated CNA students had the highest transfer rate, CNAs once again had the highest program transfer count at 2,612 compared to the second highest at 315. The smaller visual is an enlargement of the programs following CNA to give a better representation of their scale. So we can see that WCTC's nursing degree and the EMT basic programs had the next highest overall transfer counts. How likely are graduates versus non-graduates to transfer? According to the data, non-graduates are more likely to transfer, and overall most students transfer to a 4-year institution. As seen in the visual, of the 12,000 transfers, non-graduates are more likely to transfer from WCTC than graduates, overall at a difference of 53% and 47% respectively, with separation for the institution they transfer to by 2-year or 4-year. What programs have the most transfers to MATC, and what MATC degrees receive the most WCTC students? This visual is a comparison of the WCTC and MATC programs, as MATC had the highest amount of transfers from WCTC. The top visual displays which WCTC programs have the most transfers to MATC. The nursing program is once again an outlier here, 188 students each, followed by the EMTB program and paramedic technician at 45 students each. The bottom visual displays the MATC programs that receive the most students from WCTC who then graduated from MATC. Radiography leads at 23 students, with nursing and healthcare majors following at 18 and 15 respectively. Or the top 4-year institutions that WCTC students transfer to based on graduates versus non-graduates. The visual shows the top 4-year institutions that WCTC students transfer to, and is a more in-depth visual of our earlier questions of where WCTC students transfer to and how many transfer. This can be filtered off of WCTC graduates and non-graduates as well. This is important for showing which institutions are most appealing for WCTC students to continue their education at, so that transfer programs or credit transfer can be improved or focused on for these colleges. Per calculations, it also displays the rate of transfer for the time frame 2011 to 2020 at 53.75%. The years 2021 and 2022 were excluded, as students enrolled within the last year and a half would not be graduating yet, and the results would be changed by that information. The transfer count is displayed, but the transfer percent can also be viewed by hovering over each bar in respective category. So what we took away from this project: For our challenges, we had issues with organizing the college data. Colleges would have the same college code, but some had abbreviations, differentiation between online versus in-person classes, and more, including the college names. So that all needed to be standardized to make sure we were only getting one result per college code. Incomplete data. When students would graduate, their enrollment information, such as programs and enrollment dates, were wiped. So we had no information for some students when they chose to enroll at a new school if they then also graduated from that school. Bad data. Errors arose with some incorrect recording of college sequences, which is the order of colleges a student attended. Some secondary transfer schools were recorded as zeros instead of twos, which then made reporting on a student's initial transfer more difficult. What we learned: understanding data is the most important part of data reporting. The majority of our time spent reporting the data for this project was actually caused by a misunderstanding of data, and once information was cleared up by our product owner, the data was much easier to report on and visuals had to be changed and revised. It was also rewarding to work on a long-term project with peers and be able to see firsthand the communication that was required and the help you can receive if necessary. Having meetings every week and speaking to a product owner, get feedback and make changes was a good experience to see what goes into the development of a data report for a customer. The hardest part for us was the organizing college names, like I said earlier, with the differentiation between online versus in-person. And then we also had issues with degree types. Degree types is something we didn't report on, but we felt that it was a good factor to include, and that required manually entering a degree's type based on the title of the degree received by a student. But none of that data was standardized, so you had all different inputs of degree titles, whether it was your generic Associate of Applied Science, AAS, or if it also included the program title in the field. So we had to go through and manually change all of those and create a new column for that. And that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions? All right.
Couple things that I think is awesome. It took me a minute to catch up, but first let's call out the fact that you did your presentation in Power BI. That was a great choice.
Thank you.
It took me a second to be like, this isn't a PowerPoint. Oh, data nerds, cool. So that was nerdy and cool all at the same time. It took me a hot minute to understand what the data transfer was. It in or out? Which way were you
out?
Right. So like it took me probably 3 or 4 slides, using the term loosely, to catch up. And then one of the questions I was trying to get my head around was, what story are you telling? There was a lot of numbers and a lot of, this is what we saw. And I'm sure that Victor, since he called it out, was like, that makes a ton of sense. I was trying to track with the story, and I kind of got it at the end. But again, it was that, you know, if there was a way to sort of bump that up so that I could track with you and understand the narrative, that would be something to like change in your presentation. But overall, I love the slide about the where did they transfer and like the size of the blocks indicating volume. I thought that was a really, really great visualization. So I think overall, very well done.
Thank you.
On that slide, they customized each color to match the school.
Yes, each of these squares matches the logo for the school that it represents.
That's a detail that's amazing and really, really nerdy at the same time. But it's important. So that might have been one of the things that stood out. Like it wasn't just random, you know, pink, yellow, blue, purple. It was.
Thank you.
I have a question. So now that we have this data and we've looked at it, what are we going to do about it? What do you think WCTC should do about it?
Well, I think that this is just very good data to have in general, because it's very good for seeing what kind of colleges are appealing to the students. And so working on improving just either like if we have transfer programs with those colleges for students to continue their education at, being able to focus in on those 4 years that students can go to after they graduate, or the transfer of credits to some of these colleges. It's also kind of important to see like what programs have a lot of students transferring, because then you can see which students or which programs students are more likely to go on and continue their education at. So those are important to also focus on having transfer programs for.
Because we could also look at this and say, reach out to those four-year colleges and university and say, oh, by the way, do you know you have 800 of our students?
Mhm.
I would like to create a 2+2 with you.
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
like to create that transfer agreement with you because we are adding value to you.
Mhm.
So that would make us more valuable to them. So
Mhm.
wonderful. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
This is Angela Lee. I'm actually an instructor from the HIT program, but I know that Victor has us doing our lovely data day every year. And one of the stats that I think would be really fascinating to see if there's a way to get it out of this is at a program level, particularly identical program transfer to another identical program at one of the other tech schools. For example, like I'm in the HIT program in medical coding. Are we losing students to other tech colleges, or are our students who transfer really just going on and advancing their education? Because if they're transferring from school to school, then you have a question of, having to look at your program as to why they might be leaving.
Mhm.
So I thought that was interesting.
We would have time for one more question if anybody has one.
How did you handle anomalies in data other than manually?
So we also use DAX scripts within Power BI to, for instance, like with the college sequence, we went through, and if the college sequence was a 0, but the time frame for their enrollment followed a previous enrollment that they had with a different school, then that 0 was converted to a 2 instead, or a 3, depending on where it followed in. But we only really had that for, I think, 2 or 3 student IDs, so that wasn't as big of a one. And then for the college names, when we were going through trying to standardize those so that they were one college name per college code, we used DAX to also select if there was any copies for any duplicate college codes that had then a different name, and then we were able to filter those out and pick which one was more relevant or had the more relevant name.
Awesome. Data is really, really cool, but also incredibly messy. So that's great experience, y'all.
Thank you.
All right, nice job, team. Thank you very much. And then up next is our business glossary team.
Hello, we are the Business Glossary team. My name is Cassidy Hurst, and I am graduating with the IT Web and Software Developer degree, and I'm starting at Acedia as an application developer at the end of May.
My name is Riley. I'm in the Web and Software Development program as well, graduating this summer, and I currently work at Touchpad Electronics as a front-end web developer.
My name is William Houston. I am a IT data and analytics specialist. I graduate on Saturday, and I work at a company up here in Appleton called Fitment Industries as a data developer.
Hi, my name is Zach Hubba, and I am in IT Web and Software Development program. And like Riley, I am also working as a front-end web developer at Touchpad Electronics. All right, so our application was for the IRE at WCTC. Currently, they have nothing that they use for this, so we got to work on this and basically design this entire application from scratch. And what is an IRE? It's the Institutional Research and Effectiveness Department at WCTC, and they are in charge of providing purposeful coordination and providing integration of functions that support things like institutional performance, quality, and efficiency to WCTC. The IRE is going to be using this application to store business terms so that they're accessible to all of WCTC, so that terms can be agreed upon and they can be used basically throughout the school. And we'll pass it to Riley now for the next slide.
All right, so for functionality of the application, it's relatively simple from a development standpoint. What we have is what we refer to as developers as CRUD operations, which is create, read, update, and delete. So we wanted to give the users of the application as much visibility as possible and as much freedom to do what they wanted with this application. So with that, we gave the ability to add terms, edit them, update them, delete them, as well as add related data that's associated with them. So terms will be associated with certain departments and have stewards that are able to manage those terms as well. And then as well as that, we also have users that need to be authenticated. So we built in our own authentication and authorization systems so that we could have admin users that are able to add, edit, delete terms, viewers that are only able to view the terms that are available, and editors that can only edit. And all those permissions are set so that there can be a proper approval process set for each term so that they could be decided upon and have related definitions that are agreed across all departments and shared that way. And with that as well, we also have visibility to search through all of the available terms, departments, users, stewards. Everything within the application is searchable, editable, updatable. Just everything that you would want to do within the application is able to be done. So the value that this brings to the IRE department is it gives a clear understanding and communication across all departments within the school to be able to agree upon the terms that are going to be used. You know, you have a term for enrollment and what does that mean and how are we using it on our pages, across queries, surveys, everything. Just being able to have a better clarity of all the words that we're using and have a system in place to make sure that everything is clear.
Now I will switch my screen for the demo. So for our application, as Riley mentioned, we have 3 user roles. There's the viewer, editor, and admin. So to start the demo, I will log in as a viewer. So as a viewer, they are only able to see business terms that have a status of active. So this term was approved by the IRE and they are able to see all active terms in this table. Right now we only have 1. And then they can click on the row and it shows you more details about that term, like when it was entered, other fields about the term, and anything, and the active status, or if it's inactive, it'll be red, draft, yellow. And they can also view the history for this term through this dropdown. All of the history dates will appear here. And in the history, they're able to see the time period of the history, like when it started and when it was ended, and then the definitions and business rules from that date in history, not the current one. Then I'll log in as an editor. So editors are able to see draft, inactive, and active terms here. And you can also search to narrow down the results and find terms faster. Once again, when you click on the term, you can see the term view. But now as an editor, they can also edit it. And all of the data is preloaded in there for them to make the proper changes and then submit their edit. Or they can also add a new term. Just make all your changes in these drop downs. I will be showing you later where the information is coming from. And then they have these pages here. Recent changes show you all newly added terms or terms that have had recent changes, like the status was changed, the definition was changed, anything like that. And then terms awaiting approval, it shows you all terms that have a status of draft. So they are waiting to go through the approval process to make sure that the definition and everything is agreed upon. And once again, you can click on the row to go into the term view and then edit if you wish. So then I will log in as an admin. So here, everything is the same as it was for editor, but they have additional admin pages where they can manage all of the users, change their role from viewer, admin, or editor. And then departments, sources, stewards, and privacy codes are all the same. They are maintenance screens for those dropdowns that you saw in the add and edit page. And so here you can add like new departments, and if the department has a status of active, it will show up in that dropdown to allow the users to select them to be assigned to terms. So that's the same for all of those. And then recent changes and terms awaiting approval are the same as for an editor. So I'll go back to the presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Cassidy. So what was the outcome of the business glossary project? Well, we did have some bumps along the way, times that we struggled to make forward progress. But when we hit walls like that, we took time to talk out our issues amongst ourselves and leaned on one another when our experience and knowledge was limited and our stress was high. When we started working on the website, the true list of requirements was still being worked out. This meant that as the site took shape, we needed to make adjustments to bring our product closer in line with the vision provided by our stakeholders. We also struggled with the decision to change from PHP version 7 to version 8, and we were forced to step back and look at the application at large due to issues with data load times. This project was also the first time that we had worked together in a collaborative coding environment, meaning that there was a degree of necessary adjustment before work became smooth and efficient. Once the application was nearing completion, work on certain aspects of the project dried up and new work appeared. This forced us to be agile and flexible in our thinking. Next slide. It wasn't all bad. Not only did we learn about business glossaries and their use for the college, we were also able to learn about how to effectively connect and communicate with stakeholders in a professional capacity. We also got to learn a whole suite of new tools for creating modern software and data applications, including the Laravel framework, the PHP programming language, and the Vue JavaScript framework. Working on the business glossary also gave us the chance to sharpen our existing skills in working with web APIs, authentication, local servers, relational databases, Git, and of course, lots of troubleshooting. It was an opportunity to learn from each other and our differing backgrounds and interests, which we will carry forward as we enter the professional world.
In conclusion, not only did we learn individually by researching the language and frameworks that were new to us, we also learned from each other because we each were stronger in different skills or had different background knowledge. So we were able to get that student-on-student explanation so that we were able to grasp the concepts on a deeper level and apply them to our project. We are thankful for the learning curve of starting a brand new project with a language and framework that was new to us, and also some of us were new to the collaborative coding environment. So all of these new experiences definitely helped us grow our skills, and we'll be able to use them in our future careers. And we are also proud of the progress that we made during these 12 weeks. And it was a very exciting experience to see all of our work come together as a group and know that it'll be beneficial and used by others at WCTC. Any questions?
This is Sean Biesfeld here. What I really liked about your methodology is when you describe how all the specifications were not defined upfront, and that iterative process in an agile development that is very real world and good experience throughout. One of the questions I have is regarding testing and how you incorporated that in this iterative agile methodology. Did you define any, I guess, test criteria up front? How did you incorporate testing in part of your project management aspects?
I can get that one. So as we made progress on the application, we found that there was less and less data work to do, which means I needed to shift my thinking a little bit. So I took charge of testing, and what that involved was a lot of test cases. Basically, was creating different like user experience things that needed to exist in the site and making sure that they're being met, and then addressing them and repeating if there were more issues.
Excellent.
I got a question. How come the password field was plain text?
Preach.
I'll hand that to Riley.
I didn't touch the login field, so that.
Oh,
I mean, I guess that's just something we had done because it was easier for at least testing. Because a lot of the times we were just creating users and not paying attention to what the details for their login
And
was, and
I
we
think
could make sure we weren't typing it correctly, and we just never got around to replacing that with like
Yeah.
bullets or something else.
And when we hand it over, I think the IT department is turning that into the single sign-on login or whatever WCTC uses. So we didn't really focus on the login page in its entirety.
They were told that it would be ripped out and not used.
Got it. So did you guys plan for that in your database then? Because I'm assuming that you're storing like a user in the database now, and somehow that that user is going to be stored somewhere else.
We're planning to. We're currently using a users table and a unique identifier to store the password information. I'm not sure what the plan is for that users table once we hand it off to the IT department, but I know they're planning to set up single sign-on, and I'm not sure how that's going to look for the users table.
Sure.
I guess I could jump in on that one because I've worked with ITS on our single sign-on. What typically happens is we just get a SAML token back and then we marry it up to the user in the database. So we just have to have the correct login name that matches what the SAML token sends back.
So you have to have all of the users in the database before you do the single sign-on.
Yes, they have to exist or the single sign-on will fail.
How do you guys maintain that?
The team has an admin page. Do you guys want to show the users area?
Oh,
Yeah, we have
okay.
the ability to add users and set their password from there for now.
Manually have to create all the users in there.
That's going to be something that actually comes part of your fall focus, Tyler. Like they're going to give you a list, and don't worry, Nikki's got you.
All right.
No, the requirements I believe they got was that somebody in IRE or whoever manages this application would be in charge of only ensuring that the users they want in the system would be set up for it.
Okay. So everybody else that can just read it wouldn't need a login.
That was kind of up in the air, and we didn't get a strong. I think the team asked that question 3 or 4 times and could not get a solid answer on that. So we left it this way.
Okay.
So I'd love to know one of 2 things, and I'll let you guys pick which question you want to answer. So the first thing in my head would be, what things do you wish you could tell your first day of semester self and team? Or the other thing I'm dying to know internally is, how did you pick the language and frameworks you use? Because it sounds like they were all brand new and you had like the ability to pick these things, and what made you choose what you did?
The requirements that we were given, because ITS requested that we did it in PHP, and that's not a language that is required for our degree to be learned. And so we just took the task of learning that language on our own and doing that. And then we also use a Laravel framework, which I believe we chose just because it had all of the abilities and functionality for like MVC and all of that we wanted. And so it worked with PHP and all of that. And that was pretty simple to learn as well.
Also have Tyler to thank a little bit for the Laravel recommendation.
Yeah, Tyler was kind enough to let a few of us sit in on some of his classes that were involving Laravel, so we got to learn a fair bit from that.
Tyler, and I was thinking maybe you were just going to sell them all on taking that PHP class.
Oh, what they were learning was well beyond the PHP class. They actually sat in one of the fourth semester classes in the other program to get a crash course in Laravel in 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome. Sounds good. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question if anybody has one.
I just want to say that I'm super happy with all you guys and your effort. And I think it's really awesome that you guys took on the initiative to learn new languages, because that's, I mean, you never know really what you're going to stumble into in IT. So it shows your adaptivity. And I love the picture because everybody's so happy about Cassidy's cat. It's just fantastic. So it's a good way to end it all because we're all just smiling at you, smiling at each other. So, but good work. Very proud of you guys.
Thank you.
Nice job, team. Thank you very much. Up next is our Owl Books team.
Hello, how you doing? Matt, Nikki, Ellen, Tyler, Jeff, Brittany, and special guests. Welcome. This is our project, our books for spring 2022. So my name is Luis Diego Hernandez. I'm part of the IT web and software developer. I'm going to start working as a data analyst the first week of June.
My name is Matthew Martins. I am in the IT web and software developer program. I'm currently a full stack software developer at Milliman and Telescript located in Brookfield.
My name is Daniel Bueller. I'm currently in the web and software development program and actively seeking an internship.
My name is Evelyn Gressbach. I'm in the IT web and software development program, and I'll be starting as a development intern at Lanix LLC at the end of this month.
Okay, guys, so what is Owl Books? It is an existing web application that uses .NET Core as a backend, use Vue.js framework as a front end, and use SQL as a database. It is used for our bookstore, our WCTC bookstore that is currently administered by the book buyer, Seth Schuther, I guess. Sorry. So why does Owl Book exist? One, allow faculty members to enter and or approve their selected textbook or course materials every semester. Also allow department admin to manage their course material for faculty members. And one of the most important things, facilitate the course material approval process for faculty members and the book buyer. What value does the Owl Book provide to WCTC? One, identify if the course material is digital or physical, textbook or digital material, right? So second, check the status of the course material, if it's approved or declined or denied. And third, retrieve report that easily will tell you what course has been assigned for previous semester or current semester for a specific classes or in a specific group. Our focus, one of the fixed critical issues that we approach, and this one, it was the APA loading too much data at the beginning when you load the pages. Another one that we realized that we need to work really hard on this, it was missing notes on the course materials, which is really important for the book buyers or anything that needs to be added in that note. Also, we realized that search features were not working when you're trying to search for materials or any user. Teachers didn't have a way to see if the course material was added or was available. And we add different features for ad management features for administrator, and we add new user management features for the Pioneer administrator, which is going to be explained for Daniel on the next slide.
So first, I'd like to clarify that our administrators are users from the bookstore that have been authorized to manage the site. And so what we've gone ahead and done is we've reworked the page for managing accounts, where they can now deactivate users, set roles, assign departments, and edit basic information about the users. We also added the ability to assign courses to users. This has two different toggleable views, where you can either view by course and assign a user, or view by user and assign a course. This just allows for better searching options. And then we also added the ability to manage any course material. This was a brand new page where you can type in a keyword and it will bring up all results or text course materials that are associated with that search term. And you can now deactivate or activate those materials and edit the basic information with those materials. And lastly, for our administrators, we reworked our downloadable data sets, so you can now download a lot more refined data, whereas before you were downloading all of the data. So this, now you can section it out by department and courses.
All right, we had three main things that we added for the department administrators. The first was a page that allowed them to control the requesters inside of their department. Before, they weren't allowed to do that at all, so we just allowed them to add or remove people who are from the department. The second was we added a screen or screens for the department administrator to manage the course assignments inside of their departments. And this is very similar to the ones that we added for the administrators, except it's only for their departments. And then lastly, we added features that improved the course material approval process. So they're now able to unsubmit items that were submitted or unapprove things that were already approved in case there needs to be changes made.
Yeah, so some notable general improvements for the app that our team worked on were improving loading times on landing page, small bug fixes and quality of life improvements, and single sign-on. So one of the larger things for the general improvements would be decreasing the loading times on the landing page. This is primarily for the admin landing page, as that's kind of the one that has all of the courses that get loaded right when you go in. So the first thing that most of us noticed was that when you go into the page, it takes longer than 2 seconds to load. This was taking around 4 to 5 seconds on average. Could be more, could be less. But what we were able to do is we were able to basically get that load time down by limiting the amount of data that's returned. So instead of returning all of the course details, we just returned the important things like the name, the term, all of that stuff. And basically what it's for is it's to improve the overall experience for the users using the app so they don't spend all their time staring at a loading circle. Another large thing that our team got the pleasure of working on was the single sign-on. This was the first pass and has not been implemented before, but as a team, we were able to connect to the WCTC identity server and allow for the users of the app to have the option to sign in with their WCTC account, and in turn, it would then authenticate and match the user to their corresponding OwlBooks account. During the demo, you will see it, and it may seem like a minor task, but it was actually quite complex and took a lot of outside learning to incorporate this new style of authentication. Users do still have the option of using their OwlBooks account, and this was to allow for flexibility and reduce dependency on the identity server for WCTC in case it goes down or needs to be maintained. So for single sign-on, there are a lot of benefits that it provides, but the main one is, of course, easy management. This is because with single sign-on, it synchronizes your passwords and allows users to use the account that they're most familiar with. And you don't have to remember your password, because if you're already signed into WCTC, for example, when you go to the website, it's going to log you in with your already existing account. With this addition, we've offered the staff a seamless way to sign in and continue to use the applications they normally would. That concludes the major general improvements our team has worked on, and next Dan will give the demo.
All right, so like Matthew said, with the single sign-on, it brings you to the WCTC login page, and this allows users to log in with their WCTC account, and it will match them up with their corresponding OwlBooks account. So now it has signed me in. This account is set up as a requester, which is kind of the lowest tier of user on our site. It allows that user to view all of the courses inside of their department. We also have the ability, when they log out, you can sign in as a, you can sign in just using the OwlBooks login. In case, like Matthew stated, the identity server goes down, you can still use the normal OwlBooks login instead. So moving to the administrator, we have, you can see that the page here loads fairly quick. This is the page that was mentioned that before would take 4 or 5 seconds to load. And with these collapsibles and returning specific data or limited data is really kind of sped up that load time. So the first page I'd like to demonstrate is the Manage Users page. This is where you can set the role of your users along with assigning departments and activating or deactivating an account, along with editing basic information about a user. So you can, if you click on this button here, you can see all of the current departments, and you can select several departments and add those departments, and it will then assign all of those to that user. And then to unassign, you can click these little X's and it will unassign those individual courses. And then you can search by username or email to find specific users. And then moving to the Manage Materials page, this is also a brand new page. If you type in a search term or keyword for a course material, it will bring up all course materials related to that search term, where you can click on this edit button to edit basic information. And then also you can click this toggleable button to activate or deactivate a course material. And this will then show up on the requester's end, where that user can no longer select that material to assign to their course since it's currently inactive, which could mean that that book is currently unavailable to be obtained by the bookstore. And then lastly, for our administrators, inside of our admin tools, we had mentioned you can now download a lot more specific data. So if you select like a specific department, and then you can download that data, it will download it into a Excel spreadsheet, which can then be opened and viewed as just a normal Excel spreadsheet. And then moving along to our department administrator. There are two main things with our department administrator. We have our manage department, where you can manage the users inside of each individual department that you've been assigned to. You can use this button here to just remove a user, and then you can also use this button to assign multiple or singular users to your department. And then also the next page, this page actually exists for both administrators and department administrators, is a brand new page that's been implemented to assign courses to users. And this assigns all instances of a course. So if there's several offerings of a course, it will assign all of those offerings to that specific user. There are two views to this page, so you can search a lot easier. So with this page, it lists out each individual users and then each of their course assignments. If you come in here and type in a user, you can filter that down to a specific user, and then you can assign courses to them. This is a list of all current unassigned courses, and you can click assign, and that will assign all of those courses. And then now those courses will disappear from this list, so they can't be assigned more than once. And then if you click this toggleable view, you can view the opposite, where it lists out each individual course, and then it lists out the singular user that course is assigned to. It works similar. You can pop it out, and then it allows you to select an individual user and assign that user to that course. And like I said before, it will assign it to all instances of that course. The main difference between the administrator and department administrator versions of this page is the department administrator will only see the courses and users from the departments they are a part of, whereas the administrator will see all of the courses and all of the users. And that concludes the demo. Let me switch it back to, and I'll pass it to Evelyn for the conclusion.
All right, so we had a few challenges that we faced with this project, and all of them allowed us to learn. So the first challenge was that we all came from smaller projects and ones that we had started in previous classes. So it was difficult to inherit something that was several times larger than anything we've had before. And so what we learned from that was how to read and interpret code from previous developers, what they were doing, and why they were doing it. The second challenge we faced was with bad practices. In the code we inherited, there were some bad practices that we found, and so we learned how to fix them and how to avoid them in the future. But on the flip side of that, we were able to see our own bad practices that we had in projects that we came from. So we learned from the code and from previous teams how to fix ours and how to go around them. And then the hardest challenge we learned was how to work specifically in a development team. So there was the communication aspect of it, making sure that everyone is on the same page, we all know what we're working on and how we're progressing on those items. And then the second part of it was our code, making sure that our own code would work with whatever our teammates were doing, and that anything we did wouldn't erase anything our teammates had done or kill features that previous teams had done. And all of the skills that we learned are very important for us for our internships and future jobs. So it was an amazing project to work on. Thank you all for listening. And what questions do you have for us?
Well, I will start first because first of all, I absolutely love this particular project, and I probably appreciate it the most out of everybody who's on this call. I would like to say thank you very much for adding that final report so that I can look at all of the books that have been selected by users for those particular individual classes. That's been a fantastic addition, so thank you. One of the questions I have is, I noticed that it is still one course per one user. Has there been talk of saying, can I assign this course to 2 users? Like in this particular class, it is being taught by Nikki and Matt. So I have to kind of flip a coin and say, who owns the class? Who's really in charge of the materials?
So currently, we haven't really discussed anything along the lines of setting up more than one assignment. From what our understanding was, the responsibility of assigning those courses to users is it's meant to assign a singular user because they are solely alone in deciding. They can collaborate with other teachers if they need to, but for the sake of managing, keeping track of who's in charge of things, it's easier to have a singular user assigned to all instances of a course, rather than if you have several different assignments of a course assigned to several different users, and you have to contact several different users, versus if you have a singular user assigned to each of those courses, it allows for a lot simpler communication.
Sounds good. Easy way out. Thank you.
I have a question. So one of the pages you were showing, and you talked about you had some challenges with load time, and the way you addressed it was to return less data, or kind of only the data that was needed. And that page had some where you could expand a node, right, and show more data. So for each of those nodes, are you doing a separate request to request that separate data, or did that all come across in an initial data load?
So initially what had happened with that is the courses, that little accordion with the nodes, that initially was not there. And that was something that was implemented later. So the first thing that was tackled was focusing on all of the courses that are being loaded, reducing the load time for that. So it's working all off one API call basically. And it's just sectioning them off into their corresponding departments.
Now, did you feel like you spent more time doing front end or back on this, or was it a pretty good mix?
I personally think it was a pretty good mix. I think we kind of each had our own stuff with back end and stuff with front end. But that's how I feel.
So within your group, did you have a couple of people that wanted to do more front end and some that wanted to focus more on back end, or did you split it up pretty evenly?
I can speak personally for myself. I preferred to do the back end, so I did grab a majority of the back end tasks. But I do know that everybody did work on stuff that involved the back end.
I personally prefer working more on the front end, but I did some back end.
Cool. Good. Well, great job. I think you guys did a really nice job and made some real nice improvements to what I think was already a very cool project. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
have a question. First, you guys did a really great job, like where the project's going. I was curious, you mentioned there were particular problems or challenges that you came across with the code, and I'm guessing that partially came from the logging that you guys did. How did you guys kind of like get around that? What solutions did you find to implement that?
Yeah, sorry, you said it came from, did you say the login?
Yeah, you guys implemented the WCTC login. How
Yeah,
did
the
it,
single sign-on.
yeah, since there was already something implemented, how did that go for you guys?
Yeah, so that one was actually pretty fun to work with because we did not have any knowledge of the single sign-on prior to working with it. So we had to do a lot of outside learning to learn kind of the SAML and how all that stuff works together. But we're actually we're kind of doing a mix of both. Seeing as this is the first pass, that is something that a lot of stuff needed to be done on the identity server that we didn't quite learn until closer to the end of class. So we kind of took it one piece at a time. First, getting the identity server to accept our request, then allowing our application to receive the request, and then essentially using the already existing authentication that was already in the app, which was the JWT. So it uses a mix of both.
Awesome, thank you. You guys did a great job.
Thanks.
So you mentioned JWTs and SAML. What is you guys using like an OIDC flow? Is it an OAuth 2, just an authorization, and you're just trusting the identity server? Like what's that mix there? If you could go a little nerd for me, because I'm curious.
So currently the base of the app is using a JWT authentication. I'm not sure if that's OAuth or what that was already implemented when we inherited this application. And then we had spent a lot of time learning about kind of SAML and how to implement SAML. But in order for us to actually implement that, I think we needed to have a little bit more control over what happens on the identity server itself. So that kind of limited us to what we were able to do. So we kind of using, like I said, we're kind of using a mix of both. And essentially using the SAML response to find essentially accepting the SAML response, taking the username and matching it to an Owl Books username and signing them in with a JWT.
So essentially you're doing an account linking, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, I would put it that way. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool.
We would have time for one last question if anyone has one.
So guys, I love this project. There's a serious amount of complexity here, and it's cool to see this all pulled off. I am wondering, you spoke a little bit about bad code that you inherited, and that's certainly an occupational hazard. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit more to what you saw specifically that was bad practice and how you worked around that.
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak for my portion on the back end mainly, is loading just all of the data at once instead of actually breaking them down into separate models and picking exactly what you need. So a thing that was causing, like, for example, the longer load times is they have a database table that has 40,000 different rows. They're taking all of that data and just loading that with it, but they're not actually using it. So I think that is something that, which I learned from, because I did that myself in school. So, and actually thanks to Jeff had taught us kind of to use those separate models and only select the specific data that we need. So speaking on that fact, I think that's the biggest kind of code smell, if you want to call it that I noticed working on the back end.
I owe you something for that, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, team. We're actually going to go to an intermission now, and we'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll resume presentations with our WCTC Health System group. See you all in about 10 minutes. You can take it away, team.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. My name is Sereni Sanchez. I am in the Web and Software Development Program. I'm currently a full-time application developer at Sandcastle.
Hey, I'm Alexander Thanis. I'm in the IT Web and Software, and I'm currently seeking an internship.
Hello, my name is Alex Tierling. I'm in the IT Web and Software program, and I currently am working at my internship at IO Technologies in Butler.
And I'm Nick Gorgistani. I am also in the Web and Software Development program, and I am currently working as a full stack developer at TeachSafe in Pewaukee.
So our project was the Health Systems Project. The Health Systems Project is a .NET MVC application that uses Razor and Entity Framework. This application is mostly used by our nursing students and our health information technology students. The goal with this application is to allow the students to gain experience using healthcare software by running simulated patient interactions. This application previously already had the capability of patient search, patient checked-in patients overview, patient information overview, and then the ability to add and edit patients encounters, which are the simulated patient interactions, care, and also edit and add patient care assessments. Our goal with this, with our Capstone project, was to add features that would benefit the students by enhancing their learning experience. So I can demonstrate the previous capability this project had. So we were able to search for patients on this page. We were able to view all checked-in patients. We were able to do patient care assessments. We were able to edit and create new ones. We were also able to view the patient's information and edit it as well. And then this is where we would add an encounter or view the encounter as well. So now we will go over the features that were added. And actually, Nick will be the first one to go over our first form that we worked on, which is a history in physical form.
Thanks, Sereni. So the history in physical form is the goal of it is when students are simulating patient encounters, it's a place where they can store the patient's medical history as well as store the results of the physical exam of the patient. So the benefits that adds is that it gives them one place where they can store all that information, and they can review it later, as well as have access to it so that other students can view the results for that same patient. So Sereni's going to go to the form here. So the history in physical form starts with the present illness. That is whatever the patient's current ailment is. So you can enter whatever their primary complaint is, as well as add the history of that illness. Under allergies and medications, there's a drop down with a list of potential allergens that the patients might have. You can select as many as you want under allergies to store for the patient. There's an option to add social history as well as family history for that patient. The review of systems is a place where the review of the patient systems can be stored. Everything can be marked as either not assessed within normal limits or abnormal. And if it is abnormal, there is an option to add a comment for that as well. And then the physical exam portion is where students can mark down the results of a physical exam of the patient, and they can mark the symptoms that they might be having and check whether it's within normal limits or outside of the normal range. And then there's also an option to add the diagnostics as well as the assessment and the plan for that patient going forward. And then the provider can sign off. And if for certain providers, they might require a co-signer to sign off if they don't have the proper authorization. There's an option for that co-signer to add their name as well.
So that is the history and physical form. Now we have Alex that's going to go over the physician notes form.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the physician notes form was to allow our simulated providers and physicians, allow them to keep track of any changes or any new critical information the patient gets or receives, whether they checked up on during their encounter, anything like that. And the benefits of this form was allows our HIT students to get them to experience how they would normally keep track of the updates or any changes and let them look it up and stuff like that. So we can go ahead and demo this form now. Yeah, so here's a physician note form. This form keeps track of all the progress notes during the encounter for the patient. You can sort the table headers and they will change whatever you'd like to sort it by. So if it's a SOAP note or a physician note or which physician you'd like to sort it by. So we can check out add new. And this is where the note type is. With note types, the administrators can add more notes to add to the list. This pre-populates the current date that the notes comes up at. And then this allows you to put the providers in and then the note itself here. This will then save. And then it's added to the note. And then when you hit details, a modal pops up of the note itself, and then we can go ahead and edit it. This page is similar to the add progress note page. The only difference is the date has a date time function to allow them any like down outages or stuff like that. They can put in whatever time the note was to keep correct dates and time and stuff like that. And then just to delete. And yeah, that's the physician progress form.
So now Alex Tierlink is going to go over the other form that was added, which is the discharge notes form.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm going over this, Rennie. I thought you were doing this one. My bad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, no, that's correct. That was me. I'm going to be doing the presentation for discharge notes. So the goal with this form is to allow the similar providers, the nursing students or the HIT students to review the discharge notes left by the provider and also a summary of the discharge diagnosis and information. This form benefits the students by allowing them to experience and review the patient's information condition during the time of discharge and also review the provider's instructions. So just give me 1 second. So here is the discharge notes for the physicians. So here they're able to view like the admitting diagnosis. This is pretty much empty because the patient is still checked in, but you're able to view all forms, which is basically all text boxes where it allows the providers to enter as much information as they need. And you're also able to close them all. You can edit them. You can select a different date, select the provider, and you can hit by a car, a B&W. So you're able to save those changes. And this basically allows the providers to, or the students to view how these records are stored and what information is usually added to the discharge notes, which is the admitting diagnosis, the history of present illness, significant findings, medication discharge, discharge diet instruction, hospital course summary, discharge disposition, and discharge diagnosis. So with that form, it's very beneficial for the students so they can have a good understanding of what that looks like. And now this is Alex's form, which is the order forms, and he'll go over that with you.
Thanks, Rennie. So the goal of the order form is to kind of simulate how orders would be like drawn in for patients. So whether that's to admit them somewhere, transfer somewhere, maybe prescribe them something, things like that. It's mainly just to keep a record of orders for each individual patient and more particularly what they've been asked to do. The way it benefits is the students is by allowing them to like review internal staff orders as well as the status of orders and if things were done, when they were assigned, things like that. So also under physician documents will be orders, which is that tab. So in here we can see that this patient has an order. Their order is not completed, which is why it has a big flag on it. You can see the type of order, the date, and if it's active or not, as well as being able to sort by whether it is or not. Since there's only one, we don't get to see any sorting, but it's pretty similar to physician notes. You can add a new order as well, which will take you to this page here. It'll ask you a bunch of different things and pre-populate the time, which I think is probably the most important thing here. So you don't have to go searching for it, because that can be really annoying. Just add a bunch of fields. There's note boxes here, which is mainly to describe why the order is here, as well as what is in the order or partaking of it, and you can create it. There is validation on this page. So now that we have both orders, we can see that there are two separate orders and a particular time. We can view the order as well as any other important information. Click edit, Serenity. So I actually do want to show this. Please change the completed to complete. And then it'll ask you for who completed it. Most likely it'll probably be the authoring provider, but it can be anyone. And then just whatever time, day it was completed. So that'll update, and now on the list here, it does update. If you click on details quick for the completed one, it'll actually show you as well who completed it, as well as what time they completed it and day. And then of course, going back to it, or back to the order, you can also delete an order as well, but that is for admins only. And then that is all that orders is.
So those were the added features, and now Nick was going to go over the conclusion of our Capstone project.
Thank you. Yeah, so ultimately the goal of this project was to provide the students at WCTC an introduction to softwares that are similar to what they might be using once they get out into the workforce. And we were able to add some features that I think will be really beneficial towards that, give them a good learning experience, something that can help them get adjusted to those types of softwares. It was a good learning experience for us as well. We encountered a lot of challenges along the way. I think one of the biggest challenges that we ran into was just the complexity of the application. Because this application has been in production and has been being developed for a long time. There was kind of a ramp up period when we started working on it, just to get used to the application, learn how it worked, get familiar with the code base. We also had to learn kind of how our portions that we were adding would fit into what already existed. We also had to learn some new technologies, but we ultimately learned a lot about how to work in a collaborative environment, collaborative development, how to communicate with each other, and how to build something that is maintainable and useful and also efficient. So that was our health systems project. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I want to speak first. So some of you were in junior high when Drew and I first had a meeting about this with Angela and the nurses. I hope you're in junior high. It was a long time ago. Drew actually spoke at a conference about how this project changed this class. So when a team gets this project, my main hope is that you don't break it. And I want to say, I want to leave Drew to say most things, so I'll come back.
I want to hear what Angela has to say, because this has been her baby.
I was going to wait and let other people talk first for a change. No, so last term, those of you who were in the meeting, our biggest thing was the security, getting different levels down and stuff like that, so that we could not only simulate different levels of access, but also direct who can work in the system and what they're allowed to do. So that's really exciting. But this semester for me, I think was probably the most exciting, because this is the first time that the system looks like a medical record. So once we get it all in place and deployed, and if everything is working the way it appears to be working, we've done some testing and so far so good. We haven't found it. It doesn't appear we've broken anything, I believe. Sometimes I don't find that out until after I really start digging into it later, but no, so what this is going to allow us to do is we can preload some records so students can examine the contents of records. We can create records that are incomplete, missing signatures, and give them policies and have them validate what's in the system. And when we have enough records loaded that are what I would consider a pristine record that is complete and accurate, our coding students can then go in and code from these records rather than piles of PDF records that we're currently using. So I'm very excited with the progress that was made this semester. And I thought I would also report that I've been in contact several meetings with nursing about the patient care assessment and working on trying to get that implemented in their sim lab so that students can document their PCA directly in. So I know that doesn't have to do with this particular go round, but it's been a long haul trying to, connect with everybody and get them all in. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. They mentioned the complexity. One of the big snags we had at the beginning was orders, because I was being asked questions and I was providing information, but we were not talking about the same things for the right reasons. So we kind of had to take 20 steps backwards and kind of start from scratch. So with the orders, that was one that I wasn't actually anticipating we would get to for this. Orders are very complicated. So we focus just on the admission orders. So ultimately there will be medication orders, therapy orders, and a wide variety of other things. But we have enough right now that we could really start to use this, provided that it all functions and deploys correctly for us in our development systems.
We're glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
So I just wanted to give a little feedback, and then I have a question as well. So first of all, I want to compliment this group on undertaking such a massive project, because this, like Matt was saying, this project has been around forever, and it's to the point now where it really is just such a massive amount. I mean, you could spend a semester just getting your hands on what's there. So I'm sure that was fairly overwhelming for you all when you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the first couple of weeks were first couple of weeks is just learning like the code base. It's like because we just
sure. So my question is a little bit of a curveball. I'm just curious, did you all feel prepared for this kind of undertaking when you got into it, or do you feel now looking back that you were, or what are some things that you wish you had known, going into this that you didn't really know, or maybe you would have felt more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were prepared to an extent. I think one of the biggest things was just I kind of touched on figuring out like how everything that we were working on fit into this, and I think we underestimated the complexity of what we were adding in the beginning, and how to build that into what already existed. There was a lot of updating that we had to do just to kind of get everything to work together. But I don't think we were quite prepared for that level of things.
Yeah, I would agree with Nick. I think that we definitely underestimated the amount of complexity when we started this project. Actually, we had discussed like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like, this is 8 weeks. So what are we gonna do with the left of time? Because we thought we were gonna finish this in 2 weeks. We thought it was gonna be very straightforward, and we were pretty surprised when we saw the complexity. And we definitely felt like we were able to work around things, even though we weren't as experienced with these complex systems. But I definitely did not feel super prepared, which was a little bit overwhelming. But I'm really happy that we were able to get it working.
So it's fair to say that it was a stressful semester, but you're very relieved and proud of what you accomplished.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, it was a really good learning experience too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, just
awesome
working with
job.
something of that
Congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, Alex.
It's just working with something of that size when we're normally working with something very small that we can load into like really fast. So working with something that big that was not, I guess part of it also was there's a lot of different like places for things to go, and there wasn't a lot of clarity on where things went when we
I would
were
say,
looking
yeah,
at
the
it.
notes, there was not enough notes of all the moving pieces. So that took us a while to just understand
So
what
did you
was
leave
going
the
on.
next team enough notes?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
All
oh
right.
yeah. We want to make sure.
Nikki and Matt, you heard it here. I want to see if they actually did with next semester's group.
I'm hoping so. Thank you, team. Nice job.
Thank you.
Up next, we have our claims data project.
Okay. So this is the Health IT Claims Database. In case you came in after the first presentation, this is our second presentation. My name is Katie Bradford. And also presenting with us is Chris Bilfus.
So what is the Health IT Claims Database? It is a database that houses the data that was purchased by the Health IT Department from the Wisconsin Hospital Association, consisting of patient health data. The data consists of patient demographics such as age, gender, and residency information, procedure codes such as International Classification of Disease or ICD-10 codes, which are used by facilities to document procedures and classify patient diagnoses and reasons for visit. Current procedural terminology or CPT codes, which are used by medical staff, and Medicare severity diagnosis related groups or MSDRG codes, which are used to determine pricing calculations for inpatient visits. Additionally, the data contains information about physicians, including their names and specialties, insurance, facility, and admission and discharge information, as well as charges and patient length of stay statistics. So what does the database do? The database will be used for analysis of patient health information, specifically individual patient visits. And why do we need the database? The Health IT Department purchased this medical data in 2019, but the data came in flat text files, which makes it difficult for students to perform analysis on patient information. By bringing this data into a database, it now becomes accessible for students to analyze and can be imported into multiple reporting platforms, including Power BI, Tableau, Microsoft Access, and Excel. This database is a tool for the students to be able to analyze and report on real-world patient data, giving them understanding of diseases with diagnosis codes and their treatments with the procedure codes, coding standards, methods of analysis, as well as the information and knowledge gained by this analysis. This data can also be used to provide tailored training to students. Some of the courses that will be directly benefiting from this database include Intro to Health Informatics, Healthcare Stats and Analytics, and Health Quality Management.
So how did we create the database? We used a process called extract, transform, and load. So that process consists of taking those flat files, the extraction, and then manipulating them and breaking them apart to make them usable in the transform process, and then loading them into the final dimensional database. So a little bit more on the transformation process that we did. The text files were in flat file format. They contain visit information and also had files for physician and MSDRG information. The visit files were broken up into 4 sections: emergency, inpatient, outpatient, and observation. As you can see in this file here, this is what the text files looked like. This was an emergency text file. So as you can see, it's all just a series of numbers and characters. There's not any real rhyme or reason or understanding of what that all means. They included a layout documentation for all of the different files. And what that basically told us is what was in each file as far as the information and the column length and the length of those actual characters. So as you can see here, age in years is from column 1 to 3 with a length of 3. So that would be this one starting here and ending at 5. The code summary was a spreadsheet that contained all of the actual text description of what those codes were that were included in the text files. So we loaded the text files into a tool called SQL Server Integration Services, or SSIS. And with that, we broke them apart and put them into columns. So as you can see here, this is that first row from that emergency file. And what we did is parse it, and we actually had to double parse it. So the first parsing process was just splitting up the different codes. And then the second process was removing all of the white space, because this one had like 2 characters of white space. So we had to remove all of that white space from the text file. The bottom part is what the staging tables look like after we were done with the parsing process. There's an emergency listed here. We had to keep the source visit type with those files. And since it wasn't included and it was necessary for students to be able to analyze on because of revenue codes, we had to create an extra column to keep the source file available. The next step of the process when we were loading into the database was linking into that code summary table. So first what we did was we loaded the code descriptions into their own correlating tables within the database, and then we loaded the staging tables into the database. And as you can see here encircled, it's discharge status, and we linked that to the code description 01 in the discharge status Excel file of home or self-care. This is what the database model looks like in physical form. This is what's called a snowflake dimensional database. Essentially what that means is we had to solve many to many relationships within the database. So there was multiple ICD-10 codes for each patient visit. Instead of making the big visit table, which is right here in the middle, really, really big, we had to create tables off of the main table in order to handle that relationship. So the fact visit table in the middle has all of the details, which are all of the unique identifiers of those different descriptions, and all of these tables contained all of the descriptors for those unique codes. We also created a data dictionary, which contained all of the table information, column information, and definitions of each column so that the end users are able to understand what is contained within the database for analysis purposes. Some of the challenges we had, SSIS was a new tool for us. So it took a lot of reading and research to be able to understand how to go about using the tool to break up the text files. We also had to do a lot of reading and research into the snowflake dimensional modeling to handle that many-to-many relationship. The text files, when they were finally loaded, contained about 3.5 million visits of information. So it was just a large amount of data, the most I think all of us had worked with. That presented a lot of problems with performance with the database, and even getting the staging tables inserted. We had to do a lot of performance tuning to be able to even insert the staging tables. The things that we learned from this, definitely SSIS experience. It was kind of thrown in at the deep end, but it was a really great experience that being able to actually use it to manipulate the data. Understanding the documentation took a long time. I think that was one of the biggest chunks of this project was just wrapping our heads around what all this information was. And in that, we got a lot of medical coding knowledge, just so we could understand all of the relationships within this data. Performance tuning, indexing. I used a tool called Live Query Statistics, which gives you live metrics on performance of the database. I used that so much with doing the performance tuning just to get an idea of how the database was actually pulling data, so I could create indexes and do some performance tuning to improve the efficiency of the database. So now we took a little bit of time and nerded out and did do some reports in Power BI so we could actually see what this data can do for the students. So this one right here, the difference between the presenting and principal diagnosis is the presenting is what the patient complains about when they come into the hospital, and the principal diagnosis is after the doctor sees them, what they've decided is their principal complaint. So as we can see here on the bottom under presenting diagnosis, unspecified abdominal pain is the most common reason for presenting, and these are just emergency cases. Acute respiratory infection is the primary principal diagnosis for ICU patients. Next, we have average total charges by MSDRG. So these are inpatients. We can see extensive burns is going to set you back a pretty penny at $423,000. That's the average visit. That's not in a lifetime. That's just that one visit. And then cardios, again, skin grafting, the biliary diagnostic procedures is going to run you about $261,000. This is one that I was really excited about. So this is all of the CPT, or those procedure codes by principal diagnosis. So you were able to see by this, based on the diagnoses that a patient is given, what are the most common procedures that are actually performed for that given diagnosis. Unfortunately, CPT codes I have learned are proprietary, so we were unable to get any descriptors on those. So I can't really tell you what those procedures are. I can just give you the codage. That's not something that we could have included into the database. With that, does anybody have any questions?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself and I couldn't get it to do it. This is Angela again. This is another one of my projects, and I have to say I'm also very excited about this one. We purchased this data, and I know how to work with flat files to some degree, and I know how to get them into Excel and manipulate them. And I recognized ICD-10 diagnosis codes, and I was able to do some very limited work with it. So when I was asked about a project, I was really excited to turn this over. This is going to benefit us in a number of ways. As she mentioned, we have 3 classes that do statistical analysis, so we can either create reports ourselves and put them out to students for them to then provide feedback on, or we can, in our upper level classes, actually set them loose in this system to do their own queries and look at some of the data and that sort of thing. So I'm really excited about that. It's also something that can help us as we're deciding how we want to create our case studies in the other system. For example, the one that's on the screen here, it shows us realistically for a diagnosis what procedures would be done, so we can start building case studies around that clinical context. So, those are some of the things that we're looking forward to using this from. And it was just a really fun project to work on as well. I was also geeking out on all of these displays as she was showing them to me during each of our meetings. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So, but yeah, I thought it was really cool. So I don't have questions, just comments.
I've got one question, but I've got a comment first or a suggestion. When you're putting together a presentation, be very, very aware of word wrapping.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
just saw that. We had it as a group so we could all edit it, and then I downloaded it in case my streaming was bad, and then I didn't.
Yeah.
It looks right in one form, but yeah, thank you. I saw
Word
it.
wrapping is unfortunate, but it was also like wait, is that real? That's okay. Oh, there's the rest of the
saw
word.
it, yeah, because I pulled it up. It's on our Windows or our 365, and I downloaded it because I was worried, and yeah, probably should have just left it on 365.
Hey, you win some, you lose some. You're trying to fight the internet, and sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. So one thing I love to see in here was the impact and the consideration for, query statistics, database performance. I'm sure you have a much better understanding and value of the impact indexes, both clustered and non-clustered have, and all of that. One of the questions I did have, because I believe in the curriculum, and Nikki can tell me that I'm forgetting and wrong and old, is we focus primarily on ETL. But one of the things I've started to see and hear more from some of the folks in the industry is about ELT, where you do all your transform after it's loaded so that you just focus on speed to load into a table like a heap almost if you choose to, and then transform it using SQL as opposed to SSIS. So I didn't know if you all had heard of that or what thoughts, initial thoughts would be. And it might be that Nikki's saying, Drew, shut up. That's not what we want to teach. And that would be cool too. So.
Well, I'm open to all suggestions. Personally, I think if you would have asked me at the beginning of this project, I probably would have been like, oh, I can use SQL to do this. I want to use SQL. But Nikki, I think, wanted us to get comfortable with this process because it was one of the tools that we were wanted to use. So I think for that, it was a really great opportunity to get to see, how this works and get my hands on that tool and really delve into it.
I think to some extent we did both pieces because they used SSIS to break apart the flat files and load them. I know Katie loaded them to staging tables, so just database tables, and then transform them with SQL into the dimensional model.
Yeah. Gotcha. So it is a hybrid or a mixture. Very cool.
Yeah, it was a hybrid.
Well, I'd like to say it is really cool to see some flat files that have transformed in this kind of stuff. This is awesome. And I can tell you this, Angela, I am sure you're thrilled and excited about this as well, because we purchased all this data. Now you can actually do something with it. So this is totally awesome. So thanks for geeking out with us.
It was really fun being a part of watching it come to life, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Very cool. I love it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Nice work on this. Up next, and most certainly not least, but last, is our picnic team.
All right. There we go. Okay. My name is Tom. I am an SEO specialist at iNet, and I'm in the web and software development program.
My name is Hunter, and I'm also in the web and software developer program. I'm currently working as a software developer at Global Precision Group.
My name is Connor, also web and software development, and I get to annoy Nick every day as a QA engineer at TeachSafe. So Picnic is an application that is built with .NET on the back end and Vue.js on the front end. It was created to replace an application called Sesame, which was basically just an application that allowed teachers and students to see and share progress in a more interactive way. The culinary school had been benefiting from those features, and so once they lost the ability to use Sesame, Picnic was born. Progress tracking is just one of the core features of Picnic. Instructors can grade and provide feedback to students based on their submitted assessments. With this functionality, instructors can manage entire classes and not just individual students, but also still retain a sense of one-on-one time with the student. So like a few of the groups that have presented tonight, we're legacy code inheritors. And like many, we struggle to understand choices made by the previous team and kind of swim through the overall technical debt that had been accrued in the process. While I would say our project was defined heavily by the issues we had to resolve, we came to understand some of the bigger decisions that was made by the previous team and kind of the reasonings behind it. So as you can see, it was a major overhaul for pretty much everything, moving from .NET 2 to .NET 5. And that actually wound up being a good thing because Microsoft has actually made .NET 5 their new jumping off point for a unified platform vision, ecosystem, everything to make it easier to develop with them. And as for Vue.js, and on top of that, .NET 5, they're just both technologies that are relevant in our coursework as well. Additionally, there were some authentication changes that went on. So I think originally they were just using cookie authentication, but then we were able to switch it over to JSON web tokens. Ultimately, the changes that were made were better for us in terms of future development, for other teams to pick this up. It's got a better interface, and it's using relevant technology to this day and age.
So the key changes to Picnic this semester were improvements to the overall design of the application. So we adjusted many elements like navigation and how the user is authenticated throughout the app. There were updates to the content structure, so how it looks on various resolutions and hardware. And this was kept in mind because most of the culinary students will be using an iPad to submit their assessments. We built out the instructor grading process further by making the design more intuitive for instructors when handling assessments, and also by creating a cleaner layout of the student assessment data in order to avoid massive walls of clutter. And just like the instructor home, the student assessment process received similar design changes that made the process of creating and viewing an assessment easier for the student. And then lastly, we managed to increase the performance throughout the application, as Tom will demonstrate later in the presentation.
Yeah, so because of how we inherited an existing code base, there was a lot of challenges that came with that. First and foremost, it was kind of a struggle to at first understand what was happening and all the moving pieces, because there's a lot of back end to front end. There's we had to work really hard to bridge the gap between the back end and front end, because .NET to and from Vue, a Vue front end wasn't very easy to do. And because of the large amounts of data we were processing, specifically images, because this is primarily a platform for students to share classwork with their culinary instructor. So we had to work to make that go a lot faster. And lots of things that we were trying to do weren't explicitly documented. So lots of the things we had to do were just up to trial and error. And now we have a live demo. So if I log in to So this is what the student homepage looks like, basically, where we have a list of assignments that have been submitted. And then, as you'll see shortly, this would be where graded assignments would be. So from here, I have this ice cream custard, and I can view that, and it propagates an image. And we can I can edit and whatnot. And then I can submit changes, and then I can even unsubmit or delete things. And let's say if I just finished reading this other custard, my custard, and let's say I gave it a reflection score of 5. And then I submit this, and then I have this, my custard. And to bring this all together, if I log out and log back in as a instructor, so here, this is what the instructor homepage looks like. And I can see all of the students, and as well as a list of all the submitted assignments. So from here, you can see Jane Doe over here, and I can click on view grades, and then I can see all of their submitted, all their submitted technique assessments. And then, yeah, and then if I see my custard over here, I can grade this, and let's say I give it a 6 out of 7. Then it pops up down here. And then if let's say I want to grade this French baguette, I'll give it a 7 out of 7. So now both of these are graded. And if I sign out and log back in as that student, so now I don't have that test custard or the baguette here anymore because they have since been graded. And now I can view the instructor store, and I can, now this is read only and I can't actually do anything. And it's no longer here. And to give you like a another quick look at the instructor view. Yeah, and then from here I can also let's say I submitted that too early and I want to undo it. I can just as easily undo that, and then it's reflected in the user or in the student view as well. Now we have that baguette, and it's all here. And that pretty much concludes the live demo. So any thoughts or questions?
Well, I could start. First thing I noticed is this is honestly one of the most user-friendly applications I've ever seen. It's so simple. I mean, I know there's a lot that you all are doing, but it's just so intuitive.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is meant to, the whole design of this application is it's supposed to be like ultimately used by the instructors and like students. So we want to have an actual like friendly user experience.
Have you all gotten any feedback from anyone in the culinary department on it?
Chef Andy has liked what we've shown him so far.
Yeah, we've been
sent him
communicating
screenshots and like that.
Yeah, with Chef Andy, and he's been liking.
I believe he's here right now, actually.
Is he?
Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Hi, Chef Andy.
Howdy.
Mike, I do have one question. Did you guys basically rewrote this? It wasn't. you didn't-
So
Yes.
the front end, yeah, we can't exactly like convert like .NET Razor sheets into Vue, but the back end, we heavily modify the back end, but the back end is like not. There are some like original pieces in the back end.
Okay, awesome job. Really, really great.
Couple of questions.
Sure.
How do we save this? Where do we locate it? How do we archive it so we can access it 5 years from now when we go through accreditation and need it for verification of competencies?
So one, we talked about this. We didn't have time to implement it in this semester, but one eventually planned feature is to have like an export like interaction on the student view, so you could export all of this data as a format that could be used for accreditation and have that all just taken care of. But that's something that we haven't that we weren't able to get around to because we just had spent so much time like building up the interfaces.
A lot of this was spent refactoring and
Yeah.
getting things in working order and getting it to what you see now. I would say that the version in between ours isn't even technically like the next version. I would say we are version 2, not version 3.
Yeah.
So that's what we're coming back to.
So that may be the next step forward then.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will
This
say
is
this thing is really fast.
Oh yeah, we
blistering even?
The database had, or because of just how the database is organized, lots of data when we were first starting development took just like seconds to propagate and actually show up, namely like the images. So like if I before it would try to load all the images all at once, and that would just take ages especially if you have a lot of them. But we optimized a lot of it to run a lot faster, because most of the time we're only getting data that we're actually using, and not just the entire as is data from the database.
It was pulling pretty much everything when you looked at
But yeah,
some of
we
the
we
information
optimized a lot of
goals.
it to make it fast and efficient.
Okay, and the pictures that get uploaded, the students are the ones who take those and upload them?
Yes. So the idea is that students could create a new assessment, and these tricking techniques are taken from the database. So in theory, you could add, like there could be an instructor could add to this list if they wanted to, and you would select the category or like the tricking technique that you're trying to demonstrate, and then you can upload an image and then give it your store. And then then the instructor could then grade that as they see fit.
Future
And then
functionality would include it to be where the picture would be able to be taken from an iPad that I know that students are using actually in the kitchen, or from their phone, just to make things a little bit easier. Although I know it's not as sanitary, so ideally the iPads that are provided for work there.
Okay.
Is everyone okay?
Andy, are you killing them in there? What's going on?
Just very excited about the Bucks win.
Yeah, the Bucks are on. Yeah.
Fair
enough.
I don't know. Did they win?
They just won. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Not to overstage you guys, because we're not. But
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Is there a way to get a summary sheet printed out at the end of the semester? Actually, it doesn't need to be printed, just a summary saved, which we may not need if we can access the whole thing anyway, so.
Yeah.
I'm making this up as I go along.
Sure. So basically what's going to wind up happening is that functionality doesn't exist yet. We have set it up so that the next team to take this over will be able to take that and be able to print that information out for you. Outside of that, I mean, I believe, Nikki, can we provide them with the actual application itself, or?
Yeah, I'll be working on getting that up for them this summer. We're also not planning on deleting any data, so it should remain in the system for the foreseeable future at this point.
Okay. So next year is iteration number 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Depending on our enrollment in the course and what projects are coming up, but this would be one that would be highly likely to be selected since we've got a
Okay.
good idea of what needs to be done still.
Yep, this is very nice. This is a nice next step after the previous one they did. It's
Yeah.
cleaner, it's faster, still has what we need.
It's got the little spinny picnic image.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this was a must. We had to include this
We had to
animation.
keep it.
So I do have a question, actually 2 of them. One, what did y'all use to quantify or justify the claim that it's blisteringly fast?
How
It's just
hot we
Connor
got
speak, I'm
watching it.
sure.
It's literally
Yeah.
I like there are burns on my hands from touching the keyboard.
I don't have pictures or it didn't happen.
Okay, well, hang on.
Yeah,
Don't burn
but-
yourself right now. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I
But
saw that word and I was
honestly,
like, that's got to be Connor. Like, there's no other way that word got there except for
Surprisingly, it was Tom.
actually, no, it was
No,
yeah,
it was
really?
yeah, it was
Oh.
Tom.
Yeah.
Connor. You guys are like kindred then.
Yeah.
No, that's what made this project really great.
Yeah. But yeah, we spend a lot of time working and like optimizing the like flow of data. So it's yeah, like we spent a lot of time making it actually this fast. So I guess it's fair to call it blisteringly fast.
So the thing I would suggest if you're going to make a bold claim like that, and I don't disagree, it is fast.
Yeah.
But there are tools like Lighthouse tests you can run, or different automated UI tests like Playwright or other QA automation tools that could then help you back up that claim other than just look, it's fast. Because I'll be honest, I'm seeing localhost in your browser.
Yeah.
So I don't buy it. But one question I do have based on the images and based on the chef's response, how are you all handling images, and is there any compression, and is there any security concerns because you're uploading files and they've got to live somewhere?
Yeah. So images are currently not being compressed. They're literally just like uploaded to the database as is. And the images currently how they're being served, there is no like current authorization requirements for like just viewing the images. So that could be something that could be addressed later on by the next team.
What if I upload a zip file or an exe or a script?
I mean, I've never thought about that actually.
No, we didn't consider that at all.
Well,
bad
I think
people are mean.
If I recall correctly,
Should have dragged you
there
into this
is
a bit sooner, Drew.
I think there is some sort of like check of like file type as it's going in. So I would have to look into that further, but it's probably not super bad.
You could probably test it right now by going to the page where you upload, because it'll tell you what file types it allows usually.
Yeah.
That's a bold move there, Cotton. A live demo testing something. I like it. Let's go.
I mean, why not, right? We're
Do
already here.
students or instructors get notifications when like an assignment is graded, or is that like maybe a feature?
That would be a feature to be added in the future.
Cool.
Just to get back to this base functionality, there was a lot of work that needed to be done.
Brittany, that would be tricky in that we've never been allowed to connect to ITS's email system.
Yeah, so from the client side, at least, the form itself requires an image. I'm not sure if that could be manually like inserted into like a post request. But at least it's not easily like available to do. So it needs to be an image.
But I could potentially just rename a bad file as an image.
Potentially.
So-
I haven't really
You
explored
wouldn't
the
do that, would
security.
you?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
You're not in
if-
culinary. They wouldn't.
No, you'd be surprised. Like there are people who play with Kali Linux and take Mark and DJ's classes, and like you never know. So It's always the quiet ones.
So that would be something that we could add to the list of things to do for the next team that takes this up.
Is probably not a big deal compared to all the other requests, but
Yeah.
just the question.
Yeah.
I would suggest downscaling, because if you've looked at cell phone images recently, 5 to 7 megs is common.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, make sure the quality meets your, stakeholders' needs, but that's a lot of storage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know about handling zip files realistically. If students are going to take pictures of something, it'll be an iPhone or an Android and up it goes.
Yeah. I mean, one of the initial thoughts that we've had is that rather than just it being a file upload, it would access the device's camera directly. So you don't even need to upload anything. It would just, but that hasn't been implemented yet, but that would be something that would ultimately be in the final product.
That would be a nice feature.
Yep.
The only other question I had for y'all is make sure you talk to Matt and Nikki on your way through, through the completion of the class. I would expect that something similar from an approach for the health system sounds like it may be due with the Razor pages that group was dealing with as well. So you might have some lessons learned to share and potentially create clarity of what another effort might look like in that space.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you, team. Nice work. Before we conclude, are there any general comments or questions anybody wants to ask? I know Brittany usually has one right at the end. Not to call her out.
Oh, I know. I always do all the touchy-feely stuff like, hey guys, did you have a good time? I'm trying to resist. Let me think. Mostly I'm just super proud of all you guys. I love coming to these because it's so great to see where students go and how much they push themselves to do these things. Is there any takeaways from this whole process for you that you're particularly proud of? Anyone wants to share? Because you all have really grown a lot.
Well, personally speaking, I just want to say I really thanks Nikki and Matt for helping me along the process, and they know why, and they get my confidence back in the process. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right.
Hey, so one of the questions I had is, this might be a Jeff and Matt, an instructor-based question, but the healthcare system feels like it's getting to the point where a microarchitecture might be worth considering. I don't know if that's covered. I know it's only a 2-year program, but I had that question. But then the other shameless plug, if anybody wants, I don't know what the weather is in Wisconsin right now, but I live in Tennessee, and it's like 85 degrees and sunny out here. Well, it's dark now, but it was earlier today. So if you want warmer weather and are looking for a role, we're hiring.
Drew, it's the same thing.
Too. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, but I've had that for 3 months.
Yeah, same. Only today is it the same.
No, yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday
it was worse yesterday,
great.
and even then, 80s are overrated. 70s is where it's at.
We have AC too.
-20 is where it's at, guys. Let's all be honest.
Yeah.
I gotta do something with all this hair. I mean,
So
come
Drew,
on.
are you looking for developers or you're also looking for data?
Yes, I'm looking for data. I'm looking for developers. We're looking for support. We're looking for QA.
Could you put your email in the chat?
Absolutely. And we consider our dev ones. We have like a investment or a jump seat program where it's like a 12 to 18 month, you come in and you learn from a bunch of seasoned developers to get you up to the next level and prepare you for your career, to learn all the things that you can't learn in a 2-year program because it's 2 years. So if you're interested, it is, again, I live in the Nashville, Tennessee area, so it's not next door. But
Can we work remote?
no, we are in the office and we're weird. There's some cultural things you got to make sure you align with too, because we're very, very particular about who we are and what we do. But it's a great group of really smart people, and I'm always looking to add people. But you got to move here. Sorry.
Well, I'd just like to throw out there that I'm really glad that I came tonight. I was not disappointed with the quality of projects here. So congratulations to you all. And it always makes me feel great to see what you all are able to do after, you know, the short time you spend with us. So good job to all of you and best of luck.
Thank you, Jeff.
And let's not forget to call out your faculty members who got y'all here, because they do a fantastic job as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jeff.
I would laugh before I could thank him, so he can
And Brittany.
go back.
And Stacy apologizes, but she's in class now. She'd really like to attend, but her JavaScript class is always during this one. All right, I think that's a wrap on presentations for this semester. Thanks everybody for joining us. And students, if you could stick around for just a few more minutes, we just have some final things to wrap up with you. Thanks everybody, have a good evening.
Great job, all. Well done.